Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It is our first football Friday for the next 6 months here on SportsGrid. Week 0 of college football is 24 hours, 57 minutes, and 20 seconds away. Noon kickoff Eastern time overseas between Florida State and Georgia Tech. We'll preview that game with Bill Bender of Sporting News. He is coming up. Also, guest contributor, of course, from Sporting News. We cover it all here on the show, top to bottom. We'll talk a little Alabama Crimson Tide. We'll review some of what happened in the NFL preseason last night, and we will get you ready for the big weekend, opening weekend of college football here on SportsGrid. Can't wait to get right to it. So stick with us for the entire hour and all football season long for those of you who are looking for information, sometimes some picks here on the show as well. But we'll start off a rare Friday, probably the last Friday, honestly, until the postseason, that we would start off with a Major League Baseball story. But here we are, as there was a big change yesterday at manager Scott Servais, who's been with the club for basically almost a decade. And by the way, had a huge lead in the American League West, saw it go away. And yesterday afternoon, The Athletic reported that he was going to be let go. There's a story from some of the Seattle reporters saying that Servais did not know that he was being fired until he saw it on social media. How about that? So Scott Servais is out. Dan Wilson is in. Jerry DiPoto is the general manager of the Mariners. He says that it's Dan Wilson's job. But again, who really knows at the end of the season what will happen here? It's going to depend, I think, on how Seattle plays. That's not what he said. That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, look, this is Jerry DiPoto's team that he constructed. The team struggled a lot on offense, pitched really well. Servais has done a good job since he's been there in Seattle, got them back to relevancy again, and talked about his relationship with the now former manager.
This is my 35th season in professional baseball. In some capacity, I spent 15 of those years with Scott, and he's been a teammate. We've worked together at 3 different organizations. I have trusted him in just about every way you can with each job that he's done when we've worked together, including the 9 years that he spent here with the Mariners as our manager. I think he did a tremendous job in stabilizing our major league clubhouse and building a culture of work and focus. This has not been a terrific run for us over the last 2 months, and it was a very difficult decision to make, but I thought one that our team was in need of, and we need a different voice and a different direction. And I think that can be provided by Dan Wilson, who will be here to run the ball club tomorrow.
And we'll see how Dan Wilson performs. Now, Scott Servais did release a statement basically saying that he had a great run in Seattle, took the high road here. Tremendous people who I've worked with alongside every day. Thank you. 21-year postseason drought ended with Servais at the helm, and certainly Servais can't hit the ball. He's the manager. The Mariners have had problems hitting the ball all season long, and sort of lost in the shuffle here is the fact that they hired a new hitting coach in Brant Brown and fired him 2 months into the season as well. No one talks about that. All right, now, over on the golf course, we've got the BMW Championship going on. It's day 2 right now. Adam Scott is atop the leaderboard. He's 7 under par as they are almost through the second day. Alex Noren is 6 under. Keegan Bradley is 6. Corey Connors is 4 under. Couple of NFL preseason games completed last night. It has been a great preseason, and optimism surrounds the Chicago Bears. They ended up winning that game last night, 34-21 in Kansas City, although one of the defensive backs on the Bears was hospitalized after suffering an injury after making a tackle in the win. It occurred on the first play from scrimmage in the second half. Coleman tackled Cornell Powell on the Chiefs, and they had to stabilize him. But after the game, they said Coleman did have movement in his limbs. It's a great sign there. He, of course, played in the CFL. But yeah, Bears fans are excited. Had a great preseason. The Kansas City Chiefs have made Creed Humphrey the NFL's highest paid center. It's a $72 million contract over 4 years. He's been with the Chiefs since 2021 out of Oklahoma. And he's done a great job protecting Patrick Mahomes. And I'm sure Mahomes had a little wink, wink, nod, nod. Got to get this done. Colts at the Bengals yesterday. Indianapolis did win, but Colts fans are not going to be very happy watching the highlights this morning. It is a very mixed performance from Anthony Richardson. He was 8 for 14. He threw a touchdown pass, but also threw a pick 6 in the game. Second half of the game, a lot of players you're not going to see playing in the NFL. Colts end up winning this one. Now, tonight there are 3 games in the NFL preseason, and the rest of the slate is tomorrow. Jaguars will take on the Falcons tonight. Dolphins, Dolphins at the Buccaneers, and then the 49ers and the Raiders. Those are the 3 games there. All right, over to some college football, and let's get to the University of Colorado and Deion Sanders, the story that just keeps on giving every single month, every single year. Colorado sought an NIL fund, get this, from the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. Tell me you didn't see this one coming. After resigning as CU special teams coordinator, Trevor Riley went on the record about trying to pull in funding for the school's NIL collective. He expressed to Sports Illustrated no bad feelings, but spent time in the Middle East looking for money from Saudi Arabia's PIF, Name and Likeness Fund. Everybody trying to get that PIF money from Saudi Arabia. The MAC is back. The Mid-American Conference are going to be very wagering friendly going into the football season. They make an announcement yesterday that teams have to provide player availability reports to the league at least 3 hours before the football games this season. The Big Ten did this. The MAC has done it as well. All 12 teams in the MAC will have to post this and do it on social media. And if they don't, they'll face disciplinary action. So really cool story there. And if you're going to bet on the MAC, at least you'll know what's going on there. Meanwhile, the saga continues. Florida State, not even sure if they still want to be in the ACC, but they and the ACC have completed a mediation mandated by a Florida judge. And they've been battling back and forth to determine as to whether or not they're being paid fairly. Should they be able to leave the conference? Still unclear. They and Clemson, by the way, looking for a way out of the ACC. But they are playing in the ACC this season. Also, the University of Cincinnati, their head coach Scott Satterfield on Thursday named Indiana transfer Brendan Sorsby as their starting quarterback. It's a game that is a warm-up game, to say the least. They play Towson on August the 31st. Back to baseball headlines we go. Another extension for a general manager. This time it is Perry Minasian of the Los Angeles Angels. They make an announcement yesterday. He gets a 2-year contract extension that will keep him in Los Angeles through the 2026 season, although the Angels have not been very good over the last few years, needless to say. Also, Jason Hayward has his career come to an end. The Dodgers have decided that is the case. Facing a roster crunch, they DFA'd Hayward. Teams now have 7 days to claim him. He was hitting only .208 this season, second season with the Dodgers, but he hit a pinch hit home run earlier this week against the Seattle Mariners. Maybe somebody will take a shot. Corbin Burns, speaking of taking a shot, took his best shot against the Astros. It did not go well. Boy, Baltimore is sliding. Houston beats them 6-0, 5 earned runs for Corbin Burns. Also, the Atlanta Braves end up beating the Philadelphia Phillies by a final of 3-2 yesterday. Spencer Schwellenbach, 6 2/3, 2 runs, and 9 strikeouts. In the WNBA, the hottest team continues to be the New York Liberty, although a closer game yesterday, finally, for the first time since they broke. 79-71, they end up beating the Dallas Wings. That was the final there. They're now 25-4 on the season. Meanwhile, this micro betting company owned by Jake Paul called Better has acquired a license to utilize HuddleTech Sports Gaming Company. And it offers technology to stack, including odds-making, risk, and trading tool. And you wonder how close they come to actual betting as opposed to micro betting. Ohio and Virginia are 2 of the markets that they're involved in. Also, New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement found that the Borgata overstated its online casino promotional credits by over $4.5 million. 2 different years, in 23 and 24. Second time in 18 months that the MGM-run casino has been penalized for such an issue. And meanwhile, DraftKings has launched a very popular game that is growing in the United States called Electric Poker. It's a real money sit-and-go game. It's going to be available now live in Michigan. It involves 3 different players at a time. You can enter for $1, $5, or $25 tables. And it's basically very fast poker that involves only 3 people as opposed to 5 usually in a general poker table. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. Bill Bender will tell us, can Florida State crush Georgia Tech in the opener? We'll see.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. the New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's time for some college football preview. We've got several games tomorrow. We'll preview one and then also get Bill Bender of the Sporting News' prediction for the upcoming college football season. It promises to be the most insane season in a long time. College football playoffs, 12 teams in. We'll dive right in. Bill, welcome to week 0. Thanks again for coming on.
Hey, Craig. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing great. What's really fascinating about the first game of the college football season is just how strong this point spread is and this total. Like, it has been the same for a long time, and it just goes to show you when there's only a handful of games, there ain't much movement. This game's going to be played in Ireland. Florida State opens up the season against Georgia Tech. They're 10.5-point favorites, and the total is 55.5. I know, Bill, with so much to study for you going into the season, that this has to be one of the games that you're focused on this week. Who do you like?
Yeah, and the line is stuck right on there, so I'm guessing the betting is pretty 50-50. Georgia Tech could go in there and cover this game. First game jitters. What I'm watching in the game is the quarterbacks. DJ Uiagalelei last year, 50.1% on passes of 10 yards or more. Haynes King, a little bit lower, 44.2%, threw 11 interceptions. So as you're watching this game and maybe looking for an in-game bet, see which one of those quarterbacks is having success, not with the bubble screens, not with the short passes, who can connect on a few actual intermediate to deep passes, and that's the team that's going to win. If Georgia Tech can slow that down a little bit and slow down Florida State's running game, I think they have a really good chance to cover. I've stuck with 31-21 throughout, and again, they're overseas in Dublin. You don't know how kids are going to react to that. I know how the fans are going to react to that, not the kids. But I think Florida State gets out with a 10-point win.
Yeah, very close there. Right on the number, says Bill, and right on the number of the total, too. I don't know. I think college football is praying for an exciting, high-scoring game, but we'll see. Okay, so the Southeastern Conference, there's not going to be a lot of debating anymore about too many teams from the SEC getting in the 4-team college football playoff. We've now moved on to complaining about them having 3 or 4 teams, most likely in the 12-team college football playoff. So, look, I do think, Bill, that with this new format, it's going to create a lot of fun for people who follow. But I still think there's going to be some angst for the SEC, because when I look at the conference and I see 12 teams are going to make it, I'm still seeing like a minimum of 3, maybe even 4 teams from this conference getting in. I mean, Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee could get in too. Let's not forget about Alabama, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, LSU. I mean, and Oklahoma and Texas. Like, I can't find a way that 4 teams don't get in the college football playoff.
Well, I think it starts with the fact that I think 10 teams in the SEC are actual playoff contenders. You could take that, all the ranked teams, they have 9 ranked teams. And then you could take it off the board a little bit and maybe look at a sleeper if Florida were to get through that brutal schedule, So, yeah. And I think with the SEC, there's a sense of openness because Nick Saban's gone. So it's not just about Alabama and starting every conversation about Alabama and Georgia, even though those are 2 of the 3 best teams in my opinion. I think Texas is a playoff caliber team with Quinn Ewers and what they got going on there. Big season for Ole Miss, friendly schedule for the Rebels as well. And then you get into that second tier like you were talking about, Tennessee, LSU, Missouri, they all feel like they can be in that mix. I would, if there was an over-under on it, I think the SEC gets at least 3, could get 4, outside chance they get 5 playoff teams.
Yeah, I would say if there was a line, I haven't seen one, you hit it. I think 3.5 is probably the line for the college football playoff. Which team you think has more success in year one? You think it's Oklahoma or Texas? I think Oklahoma, certainly may have the better defense going into the SEC, but they haven't shown defense, Bill, in a long time in the Big 12. This is going to be a major transition for them.
Well, one trend to watch in the SEC at large, and especially with these 2 schools as they come in, can you protect home? In the last 10 years, 6 SEC schools won 70% of their home games. Now, you'll say, well, no kidding. Schools like Georgia and Alabama, they never lose. But I'm talking about Florida, and I'm talking about Auburn. It is hard to win on the road in the SEC. So can Texas protect their home? Can they win those home games? Can they make Texas an inhospitable place to play? And that'll be the key for them in year one. I think they're a little bit better positioned than Oklahoma, even with the injuries at running back, to make an impact in year one. But Oklahoma's kind of flying under the radar. We've talked so much about Texas and the quarterbacks and Arch Manning.
Yeah.
You forget, Oklahoma's got a 5-star quarterback in Jackson Arnold. Oklahoma's really good at home. I mean, they've won 86% of their games at home the last 10 years. So I think the Sooners are a little bit undervalued, but at the same time, they're going to have to answer the bell with that defense against they have, like Florida, have a very, very tough SEC schedule.
Yeah, they do. And by the way, Georgia is the favorite to win the SEC. This is the longest odds Alabama has had, Bill, maybe in a decade going into the season. I mean, normally 3-4 to 1, 5 to 1, in some places even higher to win the SEC. Is there any value jumping on the Crimson Tide, or are you sticking with Georgia here?
I think you just got to let Kalen DeBoer coach. I think they will get to the playoff. I'm still taking Georgia to win the SEC. The thing you've got to watch with Kalen DeBoer in year one, how does he do against the SEC traditional rivals? One of the brilliant things about Nick Saban, 79% winning percentage against Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, LSU. 17-3 against LSU and Tennessee the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And guess where Alabama is this year? On the road at LSU, on the road at Tennessee. Those are the games I think Kalen DeBoer will face the most pressure. I do think they're good enough to make the playoff. Milroe might be a decent Heisman sleeper, but let's not compare him to Nick Saban. I think that's a useless exercise.
All right. I know we didn't have time to jump into the Big Ten. We'll do it next week here on the show. Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington. Which team has the best shot to succeed in the new conference, Bill?
Give me Oregon. Ran for 5.9 yards per carry. Dan Lanning's built them like an SEC school. That October 12th game against Ohio State is going to be a lot of fun. I think they'll play for the Big Ten championship. I just don't know if they can beat Ohio State twice.
Yeah, going to be a fun season. It all starts tomorrow, continues next Thursday. Bill, great to see you. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire.
I'm so excited. Thanks so much.
All right, tomorrow it all begins. We've got college football today. Tomorrow morning, make sure you tune in right up until kickoff between Florida State and Georgia Tech. We'll be back with more NewsWire after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. College football is here. Who's going to win the Heisman Trophy Award? Will Alabama get back to the prominence with a new head coach? And also we'll dive into the NFL a bit too. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, a new college football season begins. A new look at the Heisman Trophy Award. Who will be deemed the best player in all of college football at the end of the season? Seems to be a wide open race this season. And not only that, but maybe some potential for someone outside of a quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy. It does not happen very often. Our very own Joe Lisi weighs in and says, don't discount the running back position for the Heisman this year.
College football kicks off this coming Saturday, and there's nothing better. I'm keeping an eye out for this year's Heisman Trophy odds. We haven't seen a Heisman Trophy running back take home the hardware since Alabama's Derrick Henry in 2015. This year, there's a host of 3 or 4 potential running backs that can challenge for the top spot. Keep an eye out for Oklahoma State's Ollie Gordon. Started the year, multiple books at 100-1. He's now down to 75-1 entering week number 0. If you're looking for value, look no further than the Big Ten. Ohio State gets Ole Miss transfer running back Quinshon Judkins. He was an 1,100-yard rusher last year, averaged well over 4 yards per carry with 15 rushing touchdowns. He's 100-1. My guy, Donovan Edwards, started the year 125-1, now down to 90-1. Big play Donovan Edwards is my pick to win the Heisman in 2024.
Nice pick from Joe. I mean, can you imagine a 25-1 coming in? We're going to have to thank Lisi at the end of the season if that's the case. All right, Alabama Crimson Tide, definitely a new era entering Labor Day weekend as they get ready for their first game of the season. Kalen DeBoer is the new head coach. Nick Saban, as you know, is now involved in broadcasting. So with Saban out and DeBoer in, DeBoer talks about all the practices and being ready to go next week.
It's slow and a lot of days, a lot of work being put in, and all of a sudden, boom, school starts, and that was yesterday. And then today, you just keep itching closer, but it seems like these days stack up faster. So we're getting close, and the guys are certainly getting to that point. I don't want to say we're there yet, but getting to that point where we need to hit someone else, and see where we're at. But we'll start getting into some Western Kentucky here over the weekend, some prep on that. There's been some things here and there that we've done, just putting film in front of them and a couple looks here and there. But this was really where we kind of dial in and focus specifically on them.
All right. You want to hit somebody else. You know, that's a college coach when you hear that terminology. Of course, all of the big teams, except for, I guess, Florida State, fair to say, opening up Labor Day weekend. But that's not going to stop us from watching college football this weekend. And if college football isn't your thing, maybe the NFL preseason is. Games tonight, games tomorrow night as they get ready to wrap it up. The big sleeper team to win the Super Bowl this season, or at least win the conference out of the AFC, are, of course, the Houston Texans. But that means there's a lot of pressure on that team to win, with expectations changing. And DeMeco Ryans says he's got a relentless team that's ready to take the field.
For me, it's just a style of play, right? It's how we play. It's a relentless style of play. It's a swarming mentality from all of our entire team. And it's hard here, right? First, starting with the conditions in which we work in, it's not the same anywhere else, right? We work in different conditions. It's a little tougher. Guys have to be able to handle that. And the biggest thing is not complaining about it. Like, we're going to work hard. We're going to be physical. We're going to play fast. We're going to practice fast. And, guys, if you're about that, then you could probably make it here.
I think right now the Houston Texans are everybody's fun pick to win the AFC or even win the Super Bowl. I like to deviate away from that and pick some team that no one's talking about going into the season. I'll tell you who my pick will be before the NFL season begins. Still got time for that. Also, still time to download the SportsGrid app ahead of all of our great college football programming coming this weekend. Right there is a QR code, and that's not to pay for Oklahoma State's NIL fund. It is free. Our SportsGrid app right there. Scan it with your phone. iTunes, it is available. Android, it is available. Doesn't matter what kind of phone you have. It's absolutely free. And you can learn more about all of our programming in addition to all of the picks against the spread from some of your favorite analysts here at SportsGrid. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. We'll dive more into sports wagering around the country with our guest contributor from Legal Sports Report. Today, Matthew Waters is in to talk about the very latest with the NFLPA and DraftKings. What's going on there? We'll tell you when we return after the break.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
NFL kickoff less than 2 weeks away. Matthew Waters is with us from Legal Sports Report. A couple of stories surrounding the NFL and the NFLPA as we bring Matt in. Matt, thanks for coming on the show. We'll dive right in. The NFLPA suing DraftKings over what they're calling a breached contract. Now, naturally, I think that people need to understand there's some separation here between the players and the league. Anyone just doesn't understand that. There is a difference here. So what exactly did the NFLPA feel that they were not paid for, or what kind of contract did get breached?
Well, you know what, Craig? I wish I could tell you definitively that we know what DraftKings is being sued for by the NFLPA. We have a pretty good idea, but all of the documents that were filed in this case are sealed. They were filed in New York. That makes sense. That's where the NFL is headquartered. And it's all sealed. So we have to kind of dig into some filings here and see what we can find out. And what we know is in August, DraftKings shut down Rainmakers, their NFT product. They said for various reasons, but they did mention some legal things that were going on. And you look at that and you think, well, maybe it was because NFTs are now considered securities by the SEC. You know, it was just kind of one of those things we read, you know, we put it to the side. Rainmakers is done. Now they can focus on bigger things. Except when you go back into the NFLPA's annual reports, in their 2023 report, says that they're owed more than $32 million by One Team Partners. Now, One Team Partners is this company they're the commercial rights holders for Players Association and college athletes. So essentially what we have here is this NFT product was set up between NFLPA, which is invested in One Team Partners, and DraftKings. One Team Partners helped facilitate the deal. And so what it looks like, what we believe this lawsuit to be about, is that the money DraftKings owes One Team Partners that would then be broken off to the NFLPA, it didn't come. Now, what's interesting is their 2022 report had more than $41.8 million missing from One Team Partners. So we know that there was about a $9 million, almost $10 million difference in between the 2 years. So obviously something changed there. You know, without knowing too much about what exactly the case is, Craig, I don't want to get into too many specifics and what ifs. But man, it hasn't been a great month for DraftKings.
No.
Putting out the surcharge and then pulling it back in. And look, people have been more okay with DraftKings after them removing the idea of the surcharge than I expected them to be. So that I think they can take a win out of that situation, but not great when a sports betting partner of the NFL is being sued by its Players Association. And definitely we're going to be watching this very closely to see what's happening.
Yeah. PR, generally speaking, with sports bettors, as long as you're paying out, I think that's the most important thing. But these side stories, as they continue to pile up, we'll have to keep an eye on. As far as the rules are concerned for the NFL, any updates here as far as gambling is concerned?
Craig, I was dumbfounded yesterday when I saw some of the paperwork that was handed out. Basically, the NFL held a conference and they updated a bunch of their rules, including surrounding gambling and education. Craig, did you know that in-person gambling education was not mandatory in the NFL before this 2024 season? That's shocking, right? Considering the issues that we've had. Everyone has to have butts in seats for gambling training this year, and it wasn't required beforehand. The first 6 seasons of legal betting in the U.S., the first 6 seasons of NFL football, they didn't make people sit in person to hear about this. So maybe that will help the rules sink in a little bit. It seems like they are really dumbing it down and really simplifying it this year, Craig. 6 main rules for NFL players. That's how it starts. Never bet on the NFL. Never have someone bet for you. Don't gamble at your team facility or while traveling. And remember, that can include the hotel as well, the team hotel that you're staying at, which, you know, if you're not in person, think about how many Zoom meetings we've had over the past couple of years, Craig. I tune out. It's hard to keep paying attention to Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. And, you know, you hear don't gamble, you think, all right, cool. I'm not going to gamble where, you know, at the team facility, obviously. But maybe you just didn't hear that team hotel part. And, that's where some of the issues have been coming in. So now they're definitely laying that out front for everyone as well. Don't share team information. That should be obvious enough. If you know quarterback A is hurt and it hasn't been out there yet, don't tell anybody. Don't even walk inside a sports book during the NFL season. You're not allowed to do that. Not don't approach the window, don't have your money out. Don't walk into a sports book. And finally, don't play daily fantasy football. And that's interesting to me, Craig, because, in the past couple of years, these players have gotten more comfortable about talking about fantasy football and playing against themselves in fantasy football or having themselves in fantasy football. And I don't think anybody has ever taken those comments to be to have integrity issues behind them. But now don't play daily fantasy football is on there as well. And then very clearly it says coaches, staff, and personnel don't bet on any sports at all.
Yeah.
So look, we have to hope that this sinks in this time, right? Maybe the NFL is just really shook by the Jonte Porter stuff and actually seeing someone and their play on the court come into the conversation. Maybe that really made them nervous and they knew that they really just had to dig in and drill in these rules to people. But all of this sounds like things that should have been said in 2018. And I don't know why they weren't said in 2018. Glad they're being said in 2024, but man, that's a lot of time to have a substandard gambling policy as it seemed.
Yeah, I would tell you, Matt, before we get to our final story here, my biggest takeaway, maybe again, because investigative reporting is sort of my thing a little bit here. My biggest takeaway is that the NFL has no problem with players playing season-long fantasy football, right? I mean, that was my takeaway from this, is that you're right. A lot of guys have talked on different shows, hosted shows, and have talked about themselves. Where am I picking myself in fantasy football? I think we have now learned that the league can now play season-long fantasy football and not even have to think twice about it. Not that they could before, but they're all playing this year if they want. Well, I wanted to come on the show here at the end and say congratulations, the state of Nebraska. You have legalized online sports betting, and now I have to do the opposite. What a down year, Matt, for sports betting operators and the states that they're trying to get into. I mean, this is going to be the slowest year we've had since they legalized sports betting.
That's not going to get much better moving forward, Craig. We either have significant religious issues, political issues, or we have tribal gaming entities that now all have their hands in the last remaining, 12 states, I think. So everything is going to be a little hard to come by. We had been hearing Nebraska that there was a chance, and there was a chance, and there was a chance. But finally, on the last day, we saw that it was said including online sports betting in any bill would be considered a poison pill to that bill. And so it just had to be dropped and forgotten about. So, Craig, I don't know what 2025 is going to look like. I don't know that Texas is going to be involved in it at that point either. I don't know how California is going to start to shape up. But yeah, we're now looking at a much slower period and a much longer drawn out process for the remaining states to get on board.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri, we thought maybe, and maybe Nebraska too, and Florida was the big story in 2023. They're really, I mean, well, look, we're only halfway through, but it feels like there is no big story coming for us for sports betting. But there are other stories to follow as well, and I know you can follow them all at LegalSportsReport.com. Matthew Waters, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Have a good one.
All right, we'll take a quick time out. Our NFL insider, Adam Caplan, joins us next. His training camp tours are coming to a close. It's time for the season. So go ahead.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Welcome back. Adam Caplan is putting a lot of miles in the air and on the ground on whatever mode of transportation he has, but that's coming to an end as the NFL preseason comes to an end on Saturday. Adam is with us here, our NFL insider at SportsGrid, to break down the Giants and Jets. We'll talk a little bit about expectations for both teams. Adam, great to have you back here on NewsWire as you put a bow on your trips. Look, I've been there with spring training, so I know how that works. It's always fun when it begins, but you can't wait for it to end when you get down to the wire.
Yeah, it is a grind, but I will say this. The weather this week out east has been phenomenal, and that practice was in really the low 60s, which is very odd in the summer out east in August, but it was. And I could tell you, and I want to get into kind of what a joint practice is. It's different than a preseason game. In preseason, you're not really showing anything. What fans don't usually know, in fact, they probably don't know unless you're able to watch these practices, is that there is game planning. There is situational stuff that you put in for these joint practices. You want to see how the opponent handles it. Whereas in the preseason, you're not going to put out anything that you were probably going to run because you don't want them to know. Because Craig, when you look at joint practice, that tape is not shared. So that's why these are more competitive. And the Jets were dominant. There's no question about it. The Giants, though I think they have a chance to be a little bit better than people think. People beating up Daniel Jones. I know he's had an inconsistent training camp. No question about it, but they're faster at the receiver position. They're better on the offensive line. A running back's going to look a lot different without Saquon Barkley, but they got handled. They absolutely got handled on Wednesday. It was only one joint practice, by the way, 3 days before the game on Saturday. And I try not to overreact to the stuff, but clearly the Jets have a better roster. And up when you're seeing it up front, you go, wow, they're a lot deeper than I remember.
Yeah. I mean, look, all those things are fair to say, especially the fact that the Giants got faster at wide receiver. Adam, they couldn't get slower over the last couple of years. It'd be impossible. I mean, they had the receiving core was just horrendous. All right, so what about this trade that the Eagles ended up making, getting Jahan Dotson sending out some picks here to go along with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith? I'm not sure why they made this trade. I felt like their wide receiving room was deep enough. But I guess, is it possible that they just didn't like their 3, 4, 5? Is that why they made this move? You don't see this happen in the division that often.
Yeah, I'll give you my reporting for both teams. So, yeah, the Eagles actually, Craig, they really struggled at their number 3 job. There were 2 issues that they had. They didn't know who their 3 would be. They're not even sure who their number 4 would be. They're hopeful for Johnny Wilson, a former Florida State receiver, 6th-rounder. Unfortunately, he's dealing with a concussion. John Ross, he has a concussion. The former Bengals first-round pick who's been Eagles camp. They just don't know what the backups look like because, as you know, Craig, when a starter gets hurt, you're one injury away from that backup becoming a starter, and they just didn't feel comfortable with it. And Britton Covey, their punt returner, has had a great camp. He's smaller, he's 5'8", 175 to 180. So they weren't comfortable with it, is my understanding. They had been looking on the street. They were looking at possible trades, and they found one. Let's get to Washington. I'm told here with Jahan Dotson, the former first runner for the Commanders, did not practice well. Clearly, it just wasn't happening. I would say, I don't think it's the front office liking him and the coaches not. I think it's both were aligned on this. They wanted to move him. One team told me they were motivated talking to them. They clearly wanted to move the player. And it's just very odd, though. And Dotson's very talented. He had a very good rookie season when he wasn't hurt. To trade inside your own division. And by the way, they're not very deep, Washington. They've been linked to Brandon Ayuk for 3 months. I know for a fact that they had talks with the Niners around the draft. They didn't get anything done. They had been out for a while. But I'd watch them. They're going to have to do something at receiver. I get that they didn't want Dotson. Remember, this group, Craig didn't draft him. The GM, Adam Peters, was not there. Of course, he was there in San Francisco or the Bay Area with the Niners when Ayuk was drafted. So they're going to have to do something. Max McCaffrey, Christian's younger brother out of Rice, who I sold the Senior Bowl, is there. Lamade Zaccheaus is also there, a former Eagle and Falcon receiver, but they're just not deep enough. That's a team that I think will be on the lookout for a receiver by week 1.
Yeah. Oh, or Adam, again, it's not a white flag season completely, but I always say that between now and Labor Day is a very big danger zone for both reality and fantasy. Some teams, the tickets are sold, Adam. It's like, okay, if Washington looks at their team and says, they're already in somewhat of a rebuild, maybe we do a little bit more. That happens every year to some team in the NFL. I don't know who it's going to be this year, if it's Devontae Adams or somebody else, but I always some shocking move, cut-wise, trade-wise. And this is a small one, I know, but that was my signal when I saw that from Washington. I could be wrong. We'll see. No signals for the Giants at this point. It's been a brutal preseason, a brutal, camps for Daniel Jones. I mean, he has been the social media story of the offseason. Of course, the Hard Knocks show that maybe Jones, they were looking for another quarterback to get traded. I kind of feel bad, man. I got to be honest. I kind of feel bad. Like he's going into the season with like a 0 level confidence personally, and it seems like from the staff as well.
All right, so you're talking about Hard Knocks, yeah. So look, the Giants they let it out that they were going to try to trade for Jaden Daniels, but they couldn't get it done. Now, Daniel Jones's base salary of over $30 million is fully guaranteed, so they know they couldn't move. No one's going to take his contract. He is the starter. Drew Lock will be the backup when he's healthy. Their offensive line, they've addressed it. I know their offensive line hasn't had a great preseason. I know personally from talking to people there, they feel like when everybody's healthy, because they finally addressed it, for years they just ignored it, didn't draft well, and now they feel a lot better with a couple of the free agents they brought in. They're going to be better. I know it looks bad for Giant fans. Relax a little bit. It's a long season. Some weeks it's not going to look good, but I could tell you they think Daniel Jones is healthy, despite what some people think. From what I've been told, I think he's good to go. In fact, I saw him against the Lions at a joint practice move and run, so he did look healthy.
Yeah, and you're right. Their offensive line historically bad last year with Jones or without him. Their win total, by the way, Adam, is 6.5 going into the season. We've seen a steady under. Now it's up to minus 142 on that 6.5. I mean, I guess things can go well. We shouldn't completely discount the Giants, but your own eyes tell you something. I'm not going to ignore that, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. I think it's right. I think they're going to be somewhere around 6 or 7 wins. I think the books have it right. Whereas with the Jets, that's my team. I'm telling you, they're going to win the AFC East. That's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I like a little bold on the way out. Adam, enjoy the final weekend of preseason. We'll see you again soon.
You got it.
All right, SportsGrid insider Adam Caplan with us exclusively on SportsGrid. We'll be back to wrap it up next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Good news for Yankees fans. Looks like Jazz Chisholm Jr. is getting ready to make his return. He's been on the injured list last couple of weeks. Thought maybe it could be season ending or close to it, but not the case. He'll be activated back in the Yankees lineup this weekend. All right, now, as we wrap things up, it's time now for some stories here. Got a couple of crimes to talk about here. Hate to do that at the end of the show. Got to do it. Time now for some last licks. What was funny was waking up and getting ready to do this show today and seeing, our rundown. We call it our rundown for the show and some of the topics we're going to talk about. One of them, our producer Frank here, he entered a title called Slick Rick Robbed. And I'm like, wait a second, is this the rapper Slick Rick being robbed? Why is this a sports story? Oh, well, it's not. It's not the rapper. This is Rick Pitino, head basketball coach. Unfortunately, had a lot of his memorabilia stolen out of his office. Now, this is some prime stuff. Remember, Rick Pitino coaching championships at Kentucky and Louisville, and, certainly in the NBA as a head coach of the Boston Celtics, too. Somebody broke in his office and took a lot of his prized memorabilia, and this is stuff that you can't get back. But I've always wondered this, folks. If you steal memorabilia, let's say from Pitino's championship at the University of Kentucky, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with Rick Pitino's ring or signed basketball or trophy from winning as Wildcats head coach? You obviously know that this was stolen from his office. I mean, if you're going to steal, I'm not advocating stealing, but if you're going to steal something, you got to make it a little more anonymous, like items that can't be resold, because you ain't going to be able to do anything with this. So I don't know, these idiots that are stealing stuff from these people just make no sense to me. And yet we have another one. Back-to-back stories here of stolen on the show. Now, this one is even crazier. So Penny Hardaway, head basketball coach again in college, played a long time in the NBA. And this dude, by the way, made a lot of money in the NBA, okay? Remember, made a lot of money playing with the Orlando Magic, then went to the Phoenix Suns and got a mega contract too. I think at the time it wasn't a lot, maybe 50, 60 million. I mean, to us, it's crazy. Somebody broke into Penny Hardaway's house and they stole sneakers. Now, again, the varieties looked like mostly used. These were not game-used sneakers from when Hardaway was a player in the 90s. These are just simply put, somebody went into his house and said that they want to take his kicks away. Now, at least these people committing these crimes were a little bit smarter by not taking his memorabilia because, again, they couldn't sell this stuff. It's Penny Hardaway. You know where it came from. But they decided to take, like, all of his Nike stuff. Hopefully they did not steal. Do you guys remember Chris Rock when he played Little Penny in those commercials? I'm sure that Little Penny is somewhere in Penny Hardaway's house. I hope they did not steal that. But that's what we're ending our show with today. People just committing crime. And by the way, don't we have like these video systems where we can catch these people, like Ring and Arlo and these other camera systems? It still amazes me today that people still try to get away with this stuff, with that happening. Okay, finally, we end Last Licks with a programming announcement. Tomorrow morning, Fantasy Sports Today. Folks, if you're getting ready for your fantasy football draft, myself and George Kurtz have you covered tomorrow morning as we preview the quarterback position and the AFC West. Each and every Saturday and Sunday, this is your one-stop shop in preparation for fantasy football. Me and George on Saturday, Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker on Sunday mornings, all throughout the fantasy football season. I know a lot of you are getting ready to draft Labor Day weekend. It is the most popular draft weekend of the year. Baseball, football, basketball, it is here. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. We'll go through all the quarterbacks, and George and I have our opinions on who will have better seasons, go through tier 1, tier 2, etc. here on the show. All right, that will do it for our week of shows here on NewsWire. And also want to remind all of you about our upcoming shows later today. In fact, we have the early line following us, followed by Caplan and crew, and then Game Time Decisions, in-game live primetime. And then tonight, Gabe is back in the house giving out all of his sitting bets on SportsGrid. I'm not going to go further into that story. Sitting bets. Okay. Also, thanks to Matthew Waters from Legal Sports Report, Bill Bender from Sporting News, and of course, Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider. Thanks to our director, Luke, and our producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. Thanks so much for watching our show all week long. We're going to do it again for you next week, Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, our next edition of NewsWire. Tomorrow morning, fantasy sports, followed by college football game day. We're ready to go. Week 0 is here. It's why you watch us here on SportsGrid. Football season, folks. It's here. Enjoy it. I'll see you Monday for a recap of it all on our next show. Have a great weekend.
It's an incredible setup here, incredible matchmaking, incredible storytelling. Oh, you had to come here. All these fighters that step in here are warriors, and all have my respect. And I'm into this game, yeah. We'll be into this, yeah.
And we are live here in the Maverick Center, here in Salt Lake City, Utah, folks. What a night. It is going to be historic indeed for BKFC 56.
Whoever's the king of violence right here, this is going to be a great fight. Carry on the target. Right hand from my Perry, double check. Who's the king of violence? I am!
Combat fighting in its purest form, bare knuckle fighting in the city of angels.
80 seconds remaining.
We've got the biggest announcement in the BKFC history we're about to make, so let's make that announcement.
What's up, Knucklemania? The notorious Conor McGregor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge announcement that I have for you today. Conor McGregor, myself, and McGregor Sports and Entertainment is now an owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Welcome to the big leagues. David Feldman, baby, we did it.
He's now an owner of BKFC with us, and we're going to take this mother...